Whenever you get a question like this, always remember this rule of 3 C's. The constitutional value or your duty is as a district magistrate to ensure that law and order is maintained. It is how are you looking at an ethical dilemma. Ideology have a very limited or no role to play. This is the essence of your opinion-based questions. There is no right or wrong answers. We just want to know what you think. The intent wasn't to check the knowledge behind Shreya's answers, but the intent was, will she yield to political pressure or can she balance legality with compassion? With respect to Know Your State series, we have been taking opinions, center to right, center to left. That is one skill that you definitely should have. Right? Apart from static questions being asked or the factual questions from your DAV being asked, one level is controversial opinion-based questions where you are using center to right or left. But the another order is, the highest order is your this role-playing based questions or situational based questions where you will be given a task, a situation, you will be given a certain role, or they might be also acting in a certain role, and you will be asked to solve the situation. Necessarily, a political ideology may or may not be used here. So more or less like your ethics paper where, the dilemmas were there, similar kind of dilemmas you will have in the situational based questions also, and there is no correct or incorrect answer. So if we take the example of Sambhal, right? You are a district magistrate. There is a group who is saying that an old mosque should be demolished and a temple should be rebuilt. Okay. And both the communities have gathered on ground. Correct? So how will you handle the situation? What will you communicate to the communities? And what if political leaders start making statements? Will you act or wait for their instructions? Right? These kind of questions might be asked at once and they can also be asked in the follow-up style. Whenever you get a question like this, always remember this rule of 3 C's. Okay? 3 C's is your context, constitutional value, and constructive action. Okay, this is one framework that you should have when you are answering a situational based question. And you should also give yourself some time to identify what dilemmas are clashing, right? What values are at stake. Your ethical dilemmas are clashing, right? So the context or the core principle, okay, you have to know, right? The context is that the first priority is to ensure peace, to avoid the escalation, right? So such situational are usually emotionally charged and even a small provocation can turn violent, right? So the context or the core thing in mind is that peace has to be ensured at any cost, correct? Now, the constitutional value or your duty is as a district magistrate to ensure that law and order is maintained, right? So the constitutional value is that as a district magistrate, your job is to maintain law and order and abide by the Places of Worship Act, to which only Ayodhya was an exception, right? So your core job is to maintain law and order, maintain or ensure that religious harmony is there and public safety is not being compromised, right? So the constitution is guaranteeing the freedom of religion, but not at the cost of public order. right? This is the core principle, and the context is core principle or constitutional value. The context is that peace has to be ensured. This is your first priority, and escalation should not happen. Now, the last part. So, when you have understood these two C's, you will be in a position to make sure that a third C is something you are able to find, right? That has to be your constructive solution. Okay, that has to be your constructive solution. Now, you will of course rush on the spot. As if you're a DM, you will coordinate with your SP, and you will impose section 144 of CRPC or the newly Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, whatever similar provision is there, right, to prohibit the gatherings. You will do that. That is your first step you can do. Then you will ensure that police presence is there, physical barriers are there, and both the groups are de-escalating. So after you do this, it means that it means internet suspension in that region is also not there. So a lot of new messaging won't be happening, and you will ensure that the crowd is de-escalating. They are leaving, right? Now, of course, you are not using force, but you are restricting the area, right? So police presence is there, physical barriers are there, and de-escalation has happened. Then you will request both the community leaders, right, to accompany them, like accompany yourself or the SP, right, to the control room or to your office for a dialogue. So basically, both the groups will be led by certain leaders, right? Whenever there is a gathering of communities, there are certain leaders who are leading the show. As a district magistrate, you will invite them to the control room or your office, and you will have a dialogue with them away from that site, right? So that is your first priority. Your first priority, or the immediate step. The immediate step would be this, right? Then within that room, you would be definitely having a dialogue, right? And you can also form a peace committee, right? So second step would be communication. Now this is all under the action part, right? This is all under the concrete action part, right? So communication control, you will ensure that rumor spreading channels are shut down, right? Social media or misinformation basically is managed on social media, right? And media briefings will be factual and transparent. So your second job is to control information. Information is usually transferred through social media, through WhatsApp, through Facebook, through Instagram. You will ensure that rumor spreading pages are stopped, and social media is regulated so that misinformation is not being spread, right? Then in the communication part, one will be the control of social media, and then you can also have a peace committee formed, right? You can also form a peace committee, right, with respected local figures, both Hindu and Muslims, to mediate, right? And you will make it clear that no structure will be touched without a legal process or court approval. So until unless court says anything, just on the basis of your faith, you are not allowed to touch any structure, no matter what religion, right? And then of course, the last step is that you will also have the preventive administration in place, right? After you do that, after de-escalation has happened, after the committees have formed, after the social media is regulated, you are having a preventive administration, right? You are keeping magistrates or police deployed in the sensitive areas till the situation is normalized, right? So this is how you answer a situational based question, breaking step by step. This is the most ideal way. But in an interview, obviously, you have limited time. You have to think also on the spot, and there uh, you have to know the steps very. You have to know the steps carefully and properly, right? You don't have enough time to make a mistake. And this might not be the only answer. That's the beauty of situational based questions. Situational based question will never have one correct answer, right? Because opinions are not there usually. It is how are you looking at an ethical dilemma, right? Ideology have a very limited or no role to play in this. Correct. So this is one aspect you need to keep in mind while solving situational based questions, and they might be asked to you in good numbers, like it was asked to one of my mentees last year. She was Shreya. Okay. And she scored 212 marks, which is a very good marks in interview. She was the second highest in interview last year. She could not make it to the final list. She missed the cutoff by only 2 marks, and she will be there in the reserve list this year, right? Most probably. This is what I'm expecting. So what if you can see Shreya's transcript very carefully, right? Her marks is 212, the second highest in India. 215 was the highest last year. Anything above 200 is a wonderful marks in interview. 210 is your, of course, topper limit. 212, 215 is exceptional. I mean, there is nothing better than this you can do in the interview stage, right? Consider this as something like 840, 850, 860, 870 in mains. To that equivalent if I have to draw parallels. Okay. If you see the first question only, first of all, yes, the questions on even the situational based questions were on her DAF, conflict resolutions, right? PSIR, Dombivali. Okay. These were there as a keywords in her DAF. The immediate situational based question was that mediate, present a mediation plan between Putin and Zelensky. Okay. So two members were saying that, okay, I am Putin, I am Zelensky, propose a mediation plan. So what did they do? They said they give you a situational based question, probably you are India or whatsoever you decide. You also decide who is Putin and who is Zelensky. So two members were there. So she started like, ma'am, I'll make you Putin, right? Then ma'am fondly replied, just because I'm not wearing a tie, you can't make me Putin. Something like that she said. So everybody started laughing, right? So she could also gauge the situation very well that they are in the light-hearted spirit. They just want to check my empathy, my constitutional understanding, and probably knowledge around that, right? They're not looking for a correct answer, maybe, right? She's not a diplomat to actually solve the problem, right? So, of course, they were checking certain parameters from her, right? So, the first situational based question was a mediation plan with Putin and Zelensky. So, role playing was happening, right? Even then, in the second panel, they also gave her certain situational based questions that in the illegal construction happening in the KDMC, right? Whose rights will you uphold? People, HC order, or rights of people in your department? They gave her certain situation that such as the case. People are involved in, say, corruption, etc. But people have taken the flats, etc. So who is at fault, right? Whose right will you protect as an officer, right? And even if a politician is involved, then whose right is important and how will you act? Another classic situational based question. Here she of course chose people because that's what civil servants are for, to uphold the rights of people. So they were checking her empathy, how much empathy she has for people. And of course she also, so that was a classic reply, empathy plus constitutional legality around it, right? Even High Court order was on those lines that protect the interest of people first, and then probably you can reaccommodate them somewhere else. Okay, so second situational based question. First was on international relations, a classic role play. I am Putin, I am Zelensky, propose a mediation plan. Second, you are an officer, there's a corruption happening in your department, your own people are involved, people's stakes are involved, a politician is involved. Who do you protect? A high court order is also there. Who do you protect? So your constitutional value and your empathy, both of them are being tested. At some point of time, Shreya sir also said, do not worry, there is no right or wrong answer. Right? See, there is no right or wrong answers. We just want to know what you think. Right? So this is the essence of your opinion based questions. There is no right or wrong answers. We just want to know what you think. As simple as that. And this is coming by the chairperson himself, Shreya sir. This is exactly what I'm saying. There is no correct answer. But they're checking certain skills. If you look, there was another kind of situational based question. Ma'am said that, give me a 1-minute speech against child marriage if you are appointed as DM and consider me as the community. Correct? So she started giving the speech in her own English prepared start. She was like कि English तो समझ ही नहीं आती मुझे, मैं तो community हूँ. Then her presence of mind, that is non-verbal cues. I'll be taking certain classes on that also, how to identify non-verbal cues. She immediately recognized this and said, "Ma'am, can I speak in Hindi?" Right? She could gauge what ma'am wanted, and ma'am definitely gave her the permission to speak in Hindi, and then definitely she could say she could focus more on educating a girl child and how when you educate a girl child, the generations improve and etc. etc. She gave her own pointers in that in Hindi, because see, ma'am was representing a community. As a district magistrate, you cannot go and speak in English to that community who is promoting child marriage, which means their education level are somewhere poor, right? That's why they are into these practices. Correct? And then ma'am also countered कि बिरादरी में लोग क्या कहेंगे, right? And अगर लड़कियां पढ़ लिख गई तो शादी कौन करेगा? Such kind of questions she was asked. Right? She could have she ended this on that, ma'am हम पढ़ाएंगे और लड़कियों के लिए स्कूल बनाएंगे. But in the hindsight, she could have also talked about certain actions that government has already taken, or her viewpoint as a bureaucrat. Like if she's a DM, what initiatives she can also take, right? Keeping both the stakeholders in mind. So every question that you are seeing, why did I pick her transcript? Because her transcript was the only transcript I had last time which had so many situational based questions, right? And see, 1 or 2 is expected from everyone, but she had 4, right? She also had this: if you are a CEO, will you impose uniform on your staff, right? These kind of questions, there is no correct answer. Correct? There are just few ethical dilemmas in clash. You pick up one, and of course, when you come to the end, you balance both. Right? So it's similarly like picking a center to right opinion or center to left opinion, defending that, and agreement to disagree. It's again like thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So this style of either answering a controversial question or a situational based question is absolutely same. But here, your dilemmas are classic. There's a classic clash. In opinion-based questions, dilemmas are also at clash, but ideology is playing a great role. Political ideology. Here, more than political ideology, your constitutional value, understanding of constitutional value, whether you have a heart or not, these kind of skills are being tested. Right? Understood this? So, see, these kind of questions come, and they are being asked from somebody who is a kind of topper only, right? And she could master the situational based questions and she could score 212 marks, right? So at times you might not be asked static question, opinion based question, but you will be given situational based questions, specifically to officers who are already IPS and trying to improve their rank to IAS. They are given a lot of situational based questions. Suppose you are in Manipur, etc., etc. There are plenty of questions I can take sessions on, and of course, you can also create. It's similarly like your ethics case studies, but presented in a very concise manner, not that exhaustive, right? So this is what you need to keep in mind while you are answering the situational based question. You need to know the intent, right? Why are they asking you such questions? This is very, very important, because without knowing the intent, you will not be able to answer such questions properly. Okay, right? So what are they looking at? They're checking your intent. Okay, what is, understand the intent behind the question. What are they checking? Are they checking, they are checking empathy? Do you have this in your arguments? Right? They are checking integrity. Do you have integrity? Because you are going to be a bureaucrat, a civil servant. Do you have integrity? Do you have composure? Do you have that calmness, जिसको ठहराव कहते हैं? Do you have this? Right? Can you stay calm under pressure? Okay. And judgment. Judgment is where your opinion making skills are also being tested. Hence, opinion making is so important in the interview process, right? Because see, there is no correct answers. There will be a side that you will have to pick, justify, right? So your judgment is very important, because you are a district magistrate, and if riots is happening, CM will know your version and not people who have been giving their own versions in the media. But he'll be asking, Mr. DM, what is your judgment of the situation? Like, how do you judge the situation? Correct? So, do you understand people's emotion? Right? What is, will you do what's right and what's not easy? Right? So, integrity. You are doing what is right and what doesn't sound easy. So, there's a difference. Everything that you will do right might not be easy. Right? Do you stay calm under pressure, and do you have the ability to have an opinion without a biasness? Right? Can you picture a very clear side? Right? So even in the Shreya's transcript that you just saw, there was a politician involved, right? There was a question that a politician is involved, who will you support? Right? What she wasn't, the intent wasn't to check the knowledge behind Shreya's answers, but the intent was, will she yield to political pressure, or can she balance legality with compassion? Right? So the intent was to check that. That's why they added politician deliberately, right? That will she yield to political pressure or not? Correct? Understood? This is important. So understanding the intent behind a situational based question is super important. And then, of course, as you can see, the ethical balance, right? The communication and persuasion, the administrative judgment, and the diplomatic composure is what each of the situations in Shreya's DAF also highlighted, right? Shreya, I've picked up these pointers from Shreya's DAF only, right? So she was tested. The first thing she was tested was diplomatic composure, right? Her ability to understand India's foreign policy, right? Does she understand strategic autonomy? Does she understands India's vision? And of course, is she a right fit for diplomat also, because IFS was her first choice also. Okay, so this can be another reason why she was asked this question. In fact, her interview started with this. Correct? Then the administrative judgment, right? Court is also involved, people are also involved, people from your department are involved, right? A politician is involved. Now there are so many stakeholders. What is your administrative lens to see that problem, right? And then in that child marriage thing, right? How are you able to communicate and persuade a rigid community who's rigid on a practice, who's stubborn on a practice, who doesn't want you to interfere in their way of living? How do you explain what's good, what's not good, right? How do you present a case for a girl child education? Do you have some policies? Do you have a way forward? Do you have empathy? Do you feel for a girl child, or you're just giving a good speech and coming out, right? Your ability to persuade was also tested. And then of course all these questions had the ethical balance. The ethical dilemmas were always at clash, right? So before answering them, take some seconds and understand the stakeholders involved. Without them, you will not be able to answer them. What values are being tested? Who are the stakeholders? Understand this properly. Okay. Then what's important is that this framework is something you should know. We just solved a question based on this framework only. You have to understand the context, you have to understand the core value, and you have to give a constructive action, right? It can differ in different cases, but you cannot do away with constitution, right? Ultimately, the core principle or the value has to be a constitutional value assigned to the position that you are in, or what constitution says in this situation, right? But the context is very important. You need to understand that what is the emotion, what is the context behind the issue, right? And a constructive solution where you are balancing the sides. Correct? Now, there will be times when, they become something, right? Board, just say in her case, that I am the villager, and convince me that child marriage is bad, right? If so, one is of course what Shreya did was she could understand the non-verbal cues well. Ma'am automatically said that I'm not able to understand. She could pick, okay, I need to switch to Hindi. She could ask that, right? That's one. She could pick up the non-verbal cues very well. Second, the always a good idea is when you are given such questions, you are stepping in their shoes, right? So yes, अगर आप कम्युनिटी से बात कर रहे हैं तो आपको कम्युनिटी में ही पहले समझना पड़ेगा उनसे. You have to acknowledge them. Okay, I understand your concerns. आप ठीक कह रहे हैं, right? Even in opinion rational other side, I have taught you when you take other side or when you defend a counter, you will acknowledge the concern first, right? That you are right, ma'am, this is happening. However, I will stick to my original opinion because I have this data. That is what I have taught you in opinion rational other side format also. Similarly, in this, you will have to acknowledge them, right? You have to acknowledge the concern. Okay, you have to acknowledge Putin's concern, you have to acknowledge the villager concern, and then you have to de-escalate emotionally. Correct? And then you present a middle path. Right? It is same like that. Your tone has to be respectful because they are not checking your debating abilities at all. Right? So it's not a debate competition. You don't have to win an award. Right? They're just knowing, they just want to see your empathy, your diplomatic handling abilities. Okay? Right? So step into their shoes कि भाई साहब आपकी बात सही है, लोग क्या कहेंगे, मतलब यू आर राइट कि समाज हमारा इंपॉर्टेंट हिस्से का पार्ट है और लोग क्या कहेंगे, बेटे की शादी नहीं हो रही है. लेकिन अगर एक बेटी पढ़ जाए तो वो अपनी पूरी जनरेशन को पढ़ाएगी. ठीक है? तो देन यू आर जेंटली शिफ्टिंग द पर्सपेक्टिव. But without stepping into their shoes, you can't directly start with a solution. Otherwise, it will be a static answer. It will be a governance-based means answer. What should be done? School बना दो. कैसे बनाओगे? तो ये सब अभियान से. But if they're giving you a situation, if they're saying I'm a villager, I'm a Putin, I'm the Putin, so get into their shoes, understand their perspective, acknowledge their perspective, and sympathize with their perspective, and then shift the perspective. That you are right, community is important, But in that community, if my girl studies and then she becomes a role model for every other girl who would study and improve their families or generations, etc. She can become anything. She can become a prime minister, she can become a cricket player, she can become anything, pilot, army, air force, anything, right? So if you gently shift their perspective, people will understand, right? And then you end with optimism or realism, or definitely give a way forward. See, you can also explain them what already government has done with respect to eradicating child marriage and what government has done in promoting girl child education. Or if you are a DM, you can also give your own vision that this is what I am planning to do, or my team in the district or the government is planning to do. Correct? So, role playing has to be handled with the lenses of 3Cs, right? The tone, the demeanor has to be calm, composed, polite. You can't be rude. You have to speak slowly, warmly, right? You have to give a lot of attention, use your body language very well, smile at times, right? Lean slightly forward. These things you have to do when you are handling a situational based question. It is just not about your correct answer, but how you are responding with your expressions, with your body language, with your non-verbal cues. This is also very, very important. Be very honest, right? Be very honest with whatever you know. If you don't know a certain thing about a district magistrate role, do not say that. Acknowledge that I am not aware of what exactly he can do because I am not trained, but in my understanding, ma'am, this is what should be done. You have to be very, very clear on this. Okay, so tone, demeanor, energy also matters. In Shreya's case, it mattered. She could make them laugh. She assigned Madam as Putin and other one as Zelensky, and Madam was like, just because I can't wear a tie, because Zelensky is popular for not wearing a tie. Right? So something like this, and she probably didn't do this intentionally, but the mood became lighter. When they started laughing, she gained confidence, and then she understood that it is going a light-hearted way. She'll also go that way. So tone, demeanor, energy decides a lot of things, right? And lastly, you will have these scenarios. You will have law versus politics clashing. You will have community resistance coming. You'll have diplomatic tensions coming. You will have administrative crisis coming, right? You have to have an opening, a middle ground, and a right? This is exactly how you practice. And this is all based on Shreya's DAF. How she handled, I also had an interaction with her. I mentored her. She is my highest scorer even if she didn't get the services, she is my highest scorer. She scored 212 marks. Second highest was Lavanya. She scored 209. She, of course, is an IS. So, yes, she was unfortunate to miss by 2 marks, but she had the ability to master opinion-based questions, situational-based questions. Her DAF was prepared. Her knowledge on Dombivli was there. Her knowledge on the administration was there. She was aware of the ground realities. She was aware of the monsoon problem. She was aware of the construction problem. So she prepared her DAF very well. She was a PSIR student. She knew about Trump, Zelensky, whatever is going on, what statements they are making. She had a TED talk on conflict resolution. So she knew the art of resolution, solving conflicts. So prepare the DAF very well. Identify what situational based questions can come from your DAF itself. So practice this with me. You have to just fill this form on the QR code that you are getting. I'll connect to you one-to-one and we can discuss your DAF one-to-one. We can discuss situational based questions, opinion making questions, and of course, things that you need to prepare with respect to your state, right? So I'll bring in more videos on situational based questions, on non-verbal cues, on a lot of things that concerns your interview. Thank you very much.